Welcome back to the show, my fellow extraordinary Americans. For today's guests, we have Jules Weldon and Stacey Pierce. They are the co-founders of OME Gear, which is an outdoor gear company. They also have a coaching consulting business called the Salty Rim. They're the co-hosts of two podcasts, GSD Entrepreneur and Do It in Nature. They have also recently published a children's book called Rescued by Rico and have also given a TEDx talk. They're extraordinary Americans with an entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm glad to have them on the show. Guys, are you there?
We are. Hey, Cosmos.
Hi.
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to do this show with me. I'm really glad that you guys are over here. Jules and Stacey, can you tell a little bit more about your background, like how you guys met, like and your story and how you all got started with OME Gear and just in general?
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to start? Why don't you start?
Well, I'm Stace, and obviously this is Jules. And how we met. Well, first of all, my background. I'll give you a little bit of my background. My background is occupational therapy. I've been a therapist since the late 90s. And then I got into the entrepreneurial world when I had my own restaurant and catering business, and kind of caught that bug. I was not raised in an entrepreneurial family. But I did used to sell rocks to my neighbors. I would paint them and sell them. So I guess maybe as a child, I was an entrepreneur trying to make money, little hustler.
A budding entrepreneur.
A budding entrepreneur. And then as my background in occupational therapy, as I grew in that, I got recruited to actually start other businesses, like a home care business, technology for the aging in place. I actually designed and built a daycare that focused on dementia care. So, I have a love for the entrepreneurial space and being and starting new things. I've been on the ground floor of 9 or 10 startups now. So then met Jules, and when we met, it was literally love at first sight in all the good ways, especially in that we spoke the same language. We had the same heartbeat for the entrepreneurial world. And so, yeah, we met a little over 10 years ago, and we've started 4 or 5 businesses ourselves.
Yeah. And so I'm Jules, and I grew up in Pennsylvania, a little town outside of Philadelphia called Westchester. A lot of my family still lives there, but I have since moved and live in Charleston, South Carolina. That's home for me now. And I did grow up in an entrepreneurial family. So my mom started a bakery business, and my youngest brother has since taken it over, and it's one of the top wedding cake and party cake bakeries in the US. And they do a crazy amount of pastries. And I mean, my sister works there, and it's become quite the business for sure. But yeah, so I ended up moving to Charlotte after I graduated college and worked in a church in youth ministry for 10 years, and then got out of that and traveled the world to 11 developing countries for a year. I went with 3 other women, and we raised money for the trip and came back with money from the trip. So it was a pretty amazing experience of just volunteering wherever somebody needed some extra hands. And so that was a really a life-changing experience. And then came back to the US, got involved in business management consulting, ultimately working for one of the top 4 consulting firms, PricewaterhouseCoopers. But I really enjoyed it and learned a ton, but I got tired of working 80 hours a week for somebody else. And so I remembered an idea that my mom and dad came up with. It was a kind of a transformer, a lounger that if you flipped it up, it became like a dolly for the beach. And they had tried to take it to market 12 years prior, but couldn't figure out how to do it. This was before Google. And so then in 2010, I picked it back up and said, "Hey, Dad, what would you think about me trying to take your product to market?" And he, through tears, said that would be a dream come true. Talk about the American dream. And so I picked it up, redesigned it, worked with one of my colleagues from PwC, and partnered with a manufacturer in the US because we thought we wanted to do it just like people wanted it. They wanted it made in the US. But it turned out to be a really, really challenging adventure. And so ended up walking away from that in 2014 and worked at the shrimp docks in Charleston, North Carolina.
South Carolina.
Sorry, Charleston, South Carolina. See, that's why I keep her around. She keeps me honest. But yeah, did that for 9 months and made very little per hour, but needed to be around really good salt of the earth kind of people. And so once 9 months kind of came around and Stace was tired of me coming home smelling like shrimp. And she used up all the recipes that she could think of for shrimp. We ended up, that's when we started our coaching consulting business called A Salty Rim. And so we did that, but then we were like, man, nobody has taken this idea of a transformer kind of concept. And so we picked it back up in 2017-ish and ended up completely redesigning it and taking it to market. And in like 2018-ish, started shipping in 2019. And it's been the hardest thing that we've ever done. But it's been the most incredible and most rewarding.
We didn't start shipping until 2021.
I'm sorry, 2021
Yeah.
because of COVID. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So we started shipping in 2021. So it's all still that relatively new, but we've had some really great success and pretty excited about what the future holds.
I mean, that's amazing. Like the process and of how you guys got there. And I want to ask more about it because, but what came to my mind is that, like there's like a poem I read like when I was younger, like about the road less taken. Thinking the person was the Robert Frost, and like they say that entrepreneurship is like the road less taken because it's just harder to do. And I'm always interested in knowing like the thought process of like how like you guys got from like in your case like from corporate America to like the process of just doing your own thing, because it's like a risk, it's like a lot of risky ventures. So could you guys tell me the thought process of like how are you guys like assessing risk when it comes to like doing like a company, and how you guys are going about doing that, like when you're like launching a product and all of that stuff?
Cosmos, I love that question, and it's massive. Because risk is literally a part of our everyday lives. We try to make it be calculated risk, but sometimes it literally feels like we're jumping over the edge of the cliff, praying that the parachute opens, or sewing the parachute with our like hand with needle and thread as we're going down. I mean, it's the amount of risk that we've taken has been massive, I think, especially on OME gear, and just we went all in. I mean, we sold our house because we had product come over from China. We ended up having to manufacture it in China because it just was way too expensive to manufacture in the US, our product, and had product come over and we couldn't pay for it. We had paid for half of it. They shipped it on the promise that we were going to pay, and we couldn't pay for it. And so Christmas of 2021, we looked at each other and I just said, how much do you believe in this company? And through tears, she said, with all my heart. And I looked back at her and I said, I think we need to sell our house. And so we sold our house, took the equity, invested it in buying our product, paying for our product so that we could get it out of the warehouse that they had hidden it in and weren't going to release it to us until we paid them. So gosh, risk for us, I don't think you ever get familiar with risk, like so that it's comfortable. At least we haven't. But I think the more that we do it, we have our faith is truly, it's really, really important to us. And so I think we've been called to this journey of building something really big. And as a result, you don't get to do that unless you take really massive risks. And so we know that it is part of our journey, but it doesn't make it less scary.
No, I mean, and I'm super conservative when it comes to risk. I don't, I will not jump out of an airplane. Never had that. Never wanted to do it. I'm not a huge risk taker, but my motto, is one of my favorite mottos is the biggest risk in life are the ones not taken. And I think, there's a difference in jumping out of an airplane and expecting that parachute to open as you're falling through the sky, and then taking a risk of leaving your corporate job and knowing that the only person you have to count on is yourself and your ability to make it happen. And us leaving our corporate jobs happened at different times. I was still in my corporate job until 2018. And then, so Jules and I had started our consulting firm, and she didn't even know I was actually going in and turning my notice. But I was exhausted because I was going into work in my corporate job from like 7 to 3. And then I would leave work, and then we would go and meet with our clients. And then we had a podcast on top of that. So I literally wasn't unwinding the day until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And we just made it, we said, how many clients do we need that could bring in my salary plus what her salary was? And we calculated that. And in the moment we hit that client, that number of clients that we needed, I went in the next morning and put in my notice. And she didn't even know about it. I called and I said, by the way, I just put in my notice. She's like, what? And I was like, I got to jump off this ship. We can't, you're never prepared. You're never going to feel like you have enough to do it, money to do it. And so I needed to jump off, and knowing that we had our consulting firm, and it is fairly successful. And I knew that, we could make it through. And so, that was a big risk, but it's one we had to take. And I mean, when I say when I say 4 or 5 businesses, not of them, like we've had a little palette art business one time called Photo Love. Palette art, and so we knew that we could work together because, you're trying to create things. We're authors of a book, a children's book, and we had this consulting firm that we worked together in. So I knew we could work together. And so it was not a hard risk for me. I knew that as long as I was with her and she was with me, that we can make it through it, and we can continue on, and we can build these opportunities for ourselves.
So guys, one of the things that I've noticed, right, is that like if you have like a partnership, like what you guys are symbolizing is the ultimate like partnership, like where you guys are each other's spouses, and then you're also in partnership in business. And like ultimately most people, they want something like that, like they want somebody that they can go with, and they fight the world together. And so it's something that I noticed, it's amazing.
Wow,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you noticed that. And honestly, I would give up everything else to keep her. And we work side by side every day, all day. And there's not a day where I wish it were different. And it doesn't get lost on us because we met when we were older. She was 41 and I was 42. And I think because maybe that's part of the reason, but every day we're grateful for each other, and we just really complement each other, which is we just don't ever take that for granted. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and it's like not easy to like take massive risks. Obviously, that's part of the entrepreneurial spirit, to take risks. But if let's say you wanted to advise somebody like who's in corporate America and they wanted to start a business like OME Gear, where they had this idea but they're too afraid of the financial thing, like let's say they have like a family, or they have their spouse and they have like responsibilities, but they really want to do that, how would you go about advising them?
That's funny you asked that. We're actually writing a book on that right now. The book's written. It's at the editors, but that is a great question. But I mean, we never want to advise people not to do it, but you have to know it's harder than you think it is. And it takes longer, and it takes more money. Just our concept alone, just to get our first prototype built and get it the conception, was $354,000.
Wow.
And so, it's not, and now we have a complex product. Not all products are like that and cost that much. And we've learned a ton since we started. But I mean, I think that is, that's the biggest thing is know that it is harder than it appears. and to some, because a lot of times we don't hear about the hardships until after they're successful. And then it takes time, it takes more time, and it takes more money. Would you add to that?
I would say that there's three things that are non-negotiables if you're going to take a product to market. Now, if you're going to start a service company, that's different. Because you don't have to have all the capital that you need if you have if you had a product like we do. Service companies, it's literally your own grit. If you go out, you find your customers, your clients, but product companies are different. And I think they require three things. Number one is a broad network of people that you can lean into, who can refer you, who can point you in the right direction, but also who can come around you and be your biggest cheerleaders, because it's brutal. The world of entrepreneurship is absolutely brutal. The second thing is you have to have financial resources. Or know people who are willing to believe in you and put their money, where you are. Because for us, like Stacey said, it costs longer. I mean, it costs more than you will ever think to start a business. And it can really, we've watched it rip families apart, because finances and communication are two of the biggest things that rip relationships apart.
Totally.
And thankfully our challenges have just drawn us closer, but starting a business can put so much stress on someone, that while life is short and you should definitely follow your dreams, you should also know what you're getting into. Like, someone who's not willing to train should never say, I'm going to go run a marathon, because it's so strenuous on your body that you need to be able to practice and prepare and plan for that, right? And so it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. And the third thing is you need to have a spirit of grit and resilience. If you give up on things easy, or if you, always kind of prefer to take the easy route, if you sort of know those things about yourself, then either you need to go through some pretty intense, like, workout of your own physical and mental well-being to get yourself to a point of grit and resilience, or just stay in the corporate job and collect the steady paycheck. And that's not a bad thing. That might be what your priority is and what you're made for, and you can have an impact in that corporation. And that's a really good thing. Being an entrepreneur is a totally different thing, and it will stretch you in ways. It stretched us in ways we didn't think we were stretchable. But thankfully we're still standing.
But if you are a solo entrepreneur, and you feel like, you can do it, if you can do it while you're in your corporate job, or you have the financial means to do it. We would never tell someone not to do it, but I would advise them to bring alongside some coaches or people that have been in it before to guide them along the way. And so they're not stepping in the potholes, along the way. So people can, we say, so we have people come, people hire us so we can fill in those potholes for them. We can make the right connections. We can make the right introductions to manufacturers, to manufacturing reps, because we've lived in this world for so long. And so we have that Rolodex of people. And so it's easier, and you're going to make less mistakes if you can find the right people to connect with to help them along the way.
Then it'll actually cost less, because you won't make those expenses. We've made hundreds of thousands of dollar mistakes on the wrong marketing firm or the wrong manufacturer, or and so it's been painful, but yeah, leaning
that is pretty intense, actually. Like,
it is.
Yeah, I don't know if, like, the audience realizes, but that is a huge, like, when that happens, like, that can be really emotionally, like, intense,
Yeah. Crushing, really, because you thought you could trust this person or whatever. So for us now, we have a vetted network of people, and we don't go outside of that unless they refer somebody, and so now we've been through it enough, and all the mistakes were really honest mistakes. These people promised that they could do these things, and we get in, and not knowing what we didn't know, now we know. So that's good. We've learned for
Yeah,
sure.
it would have been a better use of that money to go to the entire Empire State Building and throw those hundreds of thousands of dollars off the top of the Empire State Building, because somebody would have found that money and used it better. But we didn't know what we didn't know, and now we do. And so now we can move on from that. But yeah, it was those could have been some, and they were big learning hurdles for us.
But
So-
I love talking about this, and I loved your questions,
Mhm.
because a lot of times what we found is people are willing to tell their story after they're wildly successful. And what Stace and I have committed to is telling our story along the way and telling the hardships of what we've experienced that have almost crushed us, so that people, we're approachable, or we try to be really approachable to help people avoid the mistakes that we did and tell the story along the way. So no questions off limits. I mean, we want to really be transparent and vulnerable in the growing of our business so that we can help other people.
No, I mean, Extraordinary America is all about getting people to go through this path, because I think I was talking about this with another guest, and we kind of like compared the corporate world to like the blue pill in the Matrix. Like you're stuck in this cog in the wheel, and then everything is like fine, everything is safe and all of that, but you're not really living out your calling. You're not really living out your dream. You're not being your true authentic self. You're just in another person's world, and then your plug is unpulled, like when you decide you want to go for it, and then you wake up, and then basically we see this reality. And then most people that would start on this journey is be like, I want the machine to plug me back in to the corporate world. and
Yeah.
and then it's kind of like, I was talking to this guest the other, like in a previous interview, and then he talked about it, like, like Cypher meeting the agent in the Matrix, and he was like, ignorance is bliss. And he just goes back and he does that. But I don't know, is it just us, or like do you think it feel like it's kind of like the Matrix analogy is true in this regard?
For some people, yes. For other people, no. Honestly, it would be my very, very, very last decision to go back into corporate America. Like that, every other option would have to be expended in order for me to make the choice to go back in and work for somebody else, or in a big corporation. Now, that's not to say that my journey is anybody else's, but I would rather take the risk and go all in on our own thing and fail and learn and pick back up and do it again, until we hit that wildly successful mark. But it is very much like the Matrix for a lot of people, for sure.
But this is also coming from two people who, we don't have children, and we have a dog. We have a dog. We have two dogs, but we
can take that
so we
risk.
can take that risk.
Yeah.
And so it would be different for a father who's trying to feed, a wife and 3 kids and, whatever. So it is a little bit different.
Mhm.
And so comparing us and our journey with someone else is comparing apples to oranges.
Mhm.
If someone has the ability to do it all day, every day, I say go for it.
Mhm.
Just know the risks that are involved, how much money it's cost, the time it cost. It's just not that it is it's like going to Nashville and going into a bar and knowing that person is going to be the next country star. I mean, there are very few people that actually make it in the entrepreneurial world and survive it. But there's very few people that actually just even want to even start it. They have an idea, or we've heard 100 times or more, when people see our product, they're like, oh, I came up with something like that a long time ago. Nah, but you hear that, oh, I had that idea working in my kitchen. When you see another product, I've said it myself. I'll say, you see a product, I was like, wait a minute, I had that idea, but I never did anything with it. Someone else actually did it. So, so all that to say is, I never tell anyone not to take the risk. Just know what's involved in the risk.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's another question as a continuation of this that I wanted to ask because I think you guys could answer this pretty well. So like when you're in the trenches of entrepreneurship and like you're going through all this financial hardship, a lot of times like you'd have friends and family who would like basically be dismissive. And like this is the thing that a lot of people that want to do business, like they would give that as an excuse, like, oh, I have my friends and family, and then they're gonna judge me and they're going to say that it's not going to work and this and that. And how would you go about how would you emotionally process that while you're doing this hard thing to launch your product, while at the same time you have all these people that are not supportive? And I don't know if you guys have gone through this in your life, and like how would you emotionally go about dealing with it? Because that's one of the major drawbacks from people taking this path, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as far as our family, we are very fortunate, has been, because this was Jules's parents' initial concept of a two-in-one that they came up with. And then my family, all of them have been so supportive in everything we've done. They've bought product, they've shared it with their friends and our extended families. And so that we've never experienced. The friend side has been a little bit different. We have some friends that completely support us, but then we have friends that don't understand why we're still doing it, or they're not entrepreneurs, so they'll never understand it. And so we'll tell them the hardships we're having, and they're like, well, why don't you just go back to corporate world? So they don't get it, and that's okay. There's nothing against our friends, and some of them are like, I don't need your product, so I'm not going to buy it, which is fine too. But we've had some friends come in and just say, why don't y'all go back to the corporate world, because it's so hard. And it's just we just take it with a grain of salt and just keep going. We don't allow it to interfere with it's not a roadblock for us. We don't our line of sight's ahead, and they're right here, so we just keep looking forward. But our families are fantastic. Would you agree
No.
with all that?
Yeah, I would. I mean, there's been a couple times our families have thought we're crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
But overall, they're super supportive, never ever questioning if we should be doing this. They just don't know where our perseverance and stick-to-itiveness comes from, I guess. But they've all in all have been incredibly supportive.
I think one of the biggest, when we had to sell our house and we had nowhere to go, and because they were like, what are you going to do now that you sold your house and you've spent the money on getting your product? I think people were scared. I think they were fearful for us at that point. And then we were like, well, we're just going to hit the road in an RV and start selling our product, one product at a time. And I think it took people a while to get used to that idea, because a lot of people wouldn't do that. They wouldn't sell their home to save their company. And so I think that was kind of just a moment of like a little moment of fear for us, like, what have y'all done, kind of thing. But I think overall they just keep seeing us keep moving forward, and so they're just on the sidelines and pushing behind us, and just they're like we're like running through the parade, and they're like cheering us on all the way.
Yeah, a lot of the things that I noticed in when I've interviewed a lot of people is that they go through the same things, like their perseverance, their determination, and they also go through like a situation where like friends and family, they'll have issues, but like it's pretty good that your friends and like many of your friends and family are supportive of this, because a lot of people, like, they don't even have that when they're starting out. When they become successful, then they're like, oh, we were there for you all along. It's kind of like that story of, yeah, we always knew, but like, and then it's I think when I was like really young, there was a story of like the hen that went to all of their friends to like ask for help for baking this thing, and then finally all the friends said no, and then finally the hen created the product or whatever, and then they're like, hey, we want to eat this. And it's like, no, you were not there during my failures and the things, but you only want to be there at the finish line. And
Yeah,
so yeah, that's one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of people that I've interviewed, but it's good that you guys didn't face that one that much because it is emotionally strenuous, you know?
it is. It is for sure.
So guys, one question I want to ask, like, how does a partnership work? Like where like you guys are each other like with each other together, like for a business and just like so home life. Because a lot of people like they like to keep their business life and their home life separate, but you guys are interconnected in that regard. So how does that actually work? You know, like is there times where things are difficult, or is it all like how do you make something like that work?
The word that comes to mind is we're intentional. Um, and so intentional in every front. So like I have my lane and my lanes in our company, and she has her lanes in our company that she's responsible for. And we try to do a really good job of not interfering in each other's lanes. Like she's over all manufacturing, new product development, um, anything to do with production, that kind of thing. She's the point person. She's the go-to. I'm over pretty much anything else. So like marketing, sales, the overall company strategy. Now she weighs in on that big time, and I don't do it alone, no way. But ultimately, I'm accountable for that. And so in business, we've gotten really clear on what our roles are. Now it's been a I mean, there have been times where it's been a challenge to get clarity there because I feel like I need to do something. She feels like she needs to do that too, or vice versa. But we've worked through all of those things, and now we're real clear on what our roles are. And then personally, we are very intentional about a few things, and we're not perfect at it, but very intentional about date nights where we put the phone away and we're just concentrated on each other. We try not to talk about business. We just try to be present in our relationship. And then we go on gratitude walks. And so we try to be very intentional about living lives of gratitude, whether it's we're grateful for each other and we tell each other why, or we talk about the things that we're grateful for sort of externally. But we just try to be really intentional about prioritizing our relationship over anything else. And we're not always perfect with that, but it's very, very important to us.
That is, yeah, that is awesome.
Thanks.
Because it's really like I don't know if you guys realize it's really hard to make something of this work in like today's world, but you guys have like you guys do the gratitude walks and everything. Like I can see now how it's working because when you're grateful about the little things and you're appreciative of the other person, then that leads to like a long-term partnership, you know.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. So,
Yeah.
so how you know American Identity, right? Is about the pursuit of happiness. So my question to you guys would be like, how do you guys go about pursuing happiness? Like, what does happiness look to you guys?
For me, it's that I can lay my head on my pillow every night and know that I gave everything that I was supposed to give that day, whether it's to our relationship, to the customers that we interact with, to our team members, to family members, but that I expend everything that I can in giving myself to other people and fulfilling my purpose on this earth. That to me is true happiness. And again, I certainly don't always do it perfectly, but that's the goal and that's happiness for me. So yeah.
I mean, I could ditto that, but I want to add on that because there's some days, I'll be honest, I don't have a lot to give, and I am tired. And so, some days just getting out of the bed and making the bed and brushing my teeth and making lunch, those are what I have to give.
Mhm.
And making dinner or whatever, but because this journey is so hard, but I agree with Jules. As long as I can lay my head on the bed at night knowing that I didn't waste a day, that I would, even if I was just able to give that little bit, that was the 100% of the little bit I could give. And so I don't ever want people to beat themselves up because they feel like they didn't like, and I never want to beat myself up because I didn't feel like that I wasn't on the computer for 8 hours a day. That's not where I get my happiness. I'm a creator and a creative. And so I get my happiness from creating or drawing or inventing new products or whatever. And so, you know, and so that looks different for us, but I think the same concept of laying our head on the pillow at night, knowing we gave all we could that day, that is definitely a pursuit of happiness for both of us.
Mhm.
No, it's true, right? Like a lot of people, they're trying to find happiness like through through like rampant consumerism and materialism. But like for you guys and like for entrepreneurs, like a lot of times it's the journey and the process of creating something that ultimately is fulfilling, you know, and ultimately it's all about fulfillment, and it's about going after our calling. And ultimately that's the message to the audience. You know, if you go for your calling and the thing that you're meant to do instead of like going after somebody else's dream, like you are more likely to be happy, even if
Mhm.
the journey can be filled with ups and downs. And that's the essence of entrepreneurship, at least for me, you know.
I agree. 100%. I agree with you.
Yeah. And so, guys, can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about like your your company OME Gear and its flagship product and all that, and the premise of how it all got started?
Mhm.
Yep. So OME Gear stands for Oceans Plus Mountains equals Earth, or Outdoors Made Easy. And our initial product is called the Wanderer. And as Jules mentioned before about her parents coming up with the initial concept back in 1998 of a 2-in-1 transformer product, ours is now a 5-in-1. It's a cart that holds up to 150 pounds of gear. It will also carry kayaks, paddleboards, surfboards, the long, awkward things. And then it transforms into a high camping chair, a low to the ground beach chair, a camping cot, and a lounge chair. And so it's all in one, and it folds up really small. It weighs about 30 pounds. The wheels are a game changer. The wheels are actually, they're kind of squishy, but they actually roll on deep sand. They're not a hard plastic. They're not, and they do not require air. So they're airless tires. So they will go wherever you want to go, anywhere in the outdoors, especially the beaches and the soft sand. So that's our flagship product. We have a litany of other products coming out that we're working on. And our whole mission is to kind of, try to make them all multiple use. And so what we mean by that is they can do multiple things. And so we're getting rid of all the stuff in the garage. So if you can get rid of a cart and a chair out of your garage and use one unit, then that's what we want to do. So all of our products are transformable in some way that we have, and then we have accessories to go along with them too.
Awesome. Yeah. So like other than OME Gear, is there any projects that you guys are doing that you'd want the audience to get a glimpse into?
Yeah, we're actually starting a nonprofit called Bold Sky Foundation. And with that organization, we're going to be investing into particularly female product entrepreneurs and inventors, because there's lots of stats that just show how much more difficult it is for females to take a product to market than men. And so, like for example, funding alone, only 1.6% of funding goes to women. And so the numbers are just really staggering. And so Stace and I, because of the road that we've been on, that's been challenging yet also really rewarding, and the network that we've built, we really wanted to create an organization that's not for profit, where we invest back into female product entrepreneurs. And so we're actually hosting an event in San Diego, April 26th through the 28th, where it's specifically a summit for women product entrepreneurs and inventors. And so that's one thing that if anybody's interested, they could reach out to us directly. It's easy, info@omegear.com. And we'll give them the link and all of that. But that's one project that we're spending a lot of time on right now, planning that. We're going to have incredible speakers and experts and all of that. So it'll really help move the needle forward. So that's one thing. And we have a bunch of other things. We're going to be relaunching our podcasts and like Stacey said, working on a book. And we always, they're like our children. All these different projects are like our children that we focus our time on.
No, that is awesome. Like, yeah, we definitely need more female entrepreneurship in this world. And like and the process of getting through entrepreneurship is already hard. So yeah, that is a pretty good thing you guys are doing. So how can the audience like connect with you guys personally and just get to know more about you as well as your work? Like I know you mentioned an email for OME Gear, but do you all have like a website as well as like other info?
Yeah, so our website is omegear.com. So go to that. And then the email that's connected to that comes right to Stacey and I. It's the info@OME. Comes it to us. We read every one of them and respond to every one of them. So, but the other thing is connect with me on LinkedIn. I particularly am really active on LinkedIn. A lot of times we'll write the post together or she'll give input, but I'm really active on LinkedIn, and that's just Jules Weldon. If you look for me on LinkedIn, I would love to connect with any of your listeners, and they can message me there or wherever. So we try to make ourselves pretty accessible.
That is awesome. And I'm really grateful that you guys took the time to come here and share your wisdom about entrepreneurship and about risks and all of that. Like the audience can know a lot about it. And like, yeah, entrepreneurship is hard, but like, like if with a certain spirit, we can go to the other side, and then on the other side is freedom and happiness. So I'm
Yeah.
really grateful that you're here to inspire others to do the same.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thank
Cosmos.
you.
We really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I would definitely want you guys to come back at a later time and let me know like how like the process goes and everything.
We
We'd
love
love
it.
Awesome. And I would want to conclude this episode by letting my fellow extraordinary Americans know that, hey, look, there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us, and it's our duty to awaken it and unleash it. Until next time, bye for now.